New York, March 2005. Muslims are meeting for Friday prayer in an Anglican church. All the mosques have refused to host this unusual ceremony because for the first time a woman is taking the prayers. In doing so, Amina Wadud has broken a taboo.
When women walk to the front of the mosque today, it will be a victory not only for women, but a victory for Islam and a victory for world peace.
Most Muslims view it as a provocative step. A few months later in Rabat, Morocco, a school for Imams is opening its doors to women. About 150 clerics graduate from the school each year. Like their male colleagues, women will preach, counsel, and teach in the mosques. The only restriction that remains is Friday prayer. Only men can take this most sacred of services. These studies provide the female graduate with exactly the same education as male students. Male and female preachers master not only religion, but modern scientific knowledge and languages too. We believe that students must have more contact with and be open to other cultures and their ideas. The ministry in charge of this move hopes that women will help spread a balanced and tolerant version of the Koran. Graduates will work as preachers in the public service. In doing so, the government hopes to contain radical elements. Pupils are first introduced to the teachings of the Prophet as children through schools like this Koran school in northern Morocco. But too often, in the suburbs and the country, thousands of mosques have been led by self-declared, badly educated imams. They were not under state supervision. Now these mosques are considered a breeding ground for opposition and are being closed down by the state. Officially, this crackdown is all a part of the worldwide fight against terror. On March the 16th, 2003, a series of terrorist attacks against Jewish and Western targets turned Casablanca into a bloodbath and transformed state attitudes towards mosques. 40 were killed. The attacks made Morocco acutely aware of its vulnerability against radical Islam, in spite of a long tradition of toleration.
Yes, there are extremist groupings, terrorists. That's why the government has introduced this new legislation. The goal is to interpret the Koran properly.
The reforms, instigated by King Mohammed IV, redefine the role of women in Islamic society. They're part of a series of new legislation on gender equality. 2 years ago, Mohammed IV caused a minor scandal when he let a woman read out the traditional Ramadan sermon for the first time. The king broke the taboo on purpose and in style. Up until then, women were not even allowed to enter the room. The woman preacher talks about family values. This professor has for years been researching ways in which Islamic norms can be combined with the demands of a modern society. Many don't understand why I take part in this ceremony. In our culture, we aren't used to seeing women in certain positions. Out of habit, we think that religious laws don't allow women into the priesthood. But once a woman overcomes these obstacles, she will become acceptable. I think that the Catholic Church might also one day let women into areas from which they are now still excluded.
Et tolérer la présence de la femme dans certaines missions, dans certains lieux, dans certains domaines.
Incredibly, feminist ideals are also found among Islamic women that reject the monarchy and call for a switch to an Islamic republic, such as Nadia Yassin and her friends. Nadia believes that Muslim women will be liberated through a return to the original teachings of the Prophet. and not by imitating a Western model of emancipation. I have often argued that our society deserved to be colonized because women were being oppressed. We deserved it. Women were treated like objects in the name of Islam and the Holy Scriptures, although it's wrong. Colonization was the fault of men who stuck to patriarchal tribal traditions.
Des interprétations complètement erronées et politisées et complètement sous le joug des traditions tribales et patriarcales.
Emancipated Muslim women support their own view of the Quran. They think that only a male-dominated interpretation could keep women away from the centers of power. For them, a say in the running of mosques is vital, as its role is not simply to practice religion, but to guide the way society is run. Many women are quick to point out that mosques haven't always been dominated by men. The Prophet's own wife, Aisha, preached for 40 years. Today she is the role model for the new emancipation movement in Islam. Women's demands for a new interpretation of the Quran are now coming from all directions. It is very good that a woman can become an imam, but what will she teach? It won't do any good if she sticks to the classic concepts of Islamic law that are issued from a misogynistic viewpoint. What we want is a change, a turning point. We want a revolution, but a rather soft revolution from within. The next step is a new interpretation of all that Islam has brought over the past 14 centuries. We have a long way to go. They will do all they can to stop us, but we'll try.